Hello there, my name is Stell, but you can call me Sandy. It's the spookiest time of year. Finally, time to put out the jack-o'-lanterns and don your scariest attire. Only for Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You to play at max volume through the speakers of your local mall because companies are impatient twat buckets. But I'll admit, I had some trouble figuring out what to do for this month. Halloween is my favorite holiday after all, and I can't just do anything for my favorite time of year. For someone who loves Halloween, I'm surprisingly lacking in frightening gaming-related material to cover, but then I remembered a particular short story from a long time ago that still has a pretty decent amount of influence today, and that story is I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Now, Stell, you might be asking me, how does a short story from the late 60s relate to gaming at all? Are you stupid? Well, first off, rude. And second off, you might be surprised to know that this ancient tale actually has a video game adaptation attached to it, and you'll be even more surprised to know that this game is also on Steam for $6. So I decided to delve into the past again, to take a look at a lesser-known relic and compare it to the original story, all for your viewing pleasure. So now I present to you, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the strangest video game adaptation. Much like usual, we have some history to get into, but with a small twist. That twist being a brief synopsis of the original 11-page story so that we're all on the same page. The story itself was released in 1967, amplifying the fact that even back before computers were as prolific as they are now, people were terrified of artificial intelligence going rogue. This story of Rocco's basilisk on cocaine takes place in the distant future after a Third World War, and the major superpowers decide to create these supercomputers known as the Allied Master Computers to basically fight the war for them. Unfortunately, one of the AM units went rogue, its name changing to Adaptive Manipulator and then to Aggressive Menace as it proceeded to wipe out humanity and the planet, and then turning into just AM to reflect its sentience, as in like the phrase, I think therefore I am. The actual story itself follows the 5 remaining humans that AM kept alive to essentially torment for over 100 years as they journey across the processor-controlled wasteland of AM's body. These 5 individuals are Ted, Ellen, Benny, Gorister, and Nimdok, all under their own afflictions just that way they could amuse their artificial tormentor, like Benny being anamorphed into a great ape and Nimdok forced to use a silly name. In the original story, we don't get a whole lot about the past of these particular characters before they were caged by AM, but we get the feeling that they're on their last threads of mental fortitude, as Ted, the narrator of the story, has a psychotic break, resulting in him believing that the other survivors hate him. As they travel, the 5 are of course put through trials aplenty, like hurricanes caused by colossal birds of prey that AM teases the group with in terms of food, but more particularly, AM going into Ted's mind to deliver one of the most well-known messages in this particular story.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal to 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you, hate.
Eventually, after all of this, they reach a frozen cavern filled with cans of food, only for the final cruel joke by Am in this part for them to have so much food, but they just have no way to open any of the cans. This leads them to kind of lose hope for a bit before they get an idea to save themselves from the torment. That idea being for them to kill each other so that Am cannot resurrect them. This works, as everyone but Ted is freed from Am's virtual hell. Unfortunately for Ted, this leads to him becoming a slug-like beast that is incapable of hurting itself or even speaking, thus leading to the title of the story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. The story itself is honestly incredible, and I recommend you read it for yourself, as it delves into the fears that people had about AI even back then, while also touching on the deepest machinations of the human condition. And it's also a fairly short story. It's only like 11 pages long, so at most it'll only take like an hour to complete, and this story was so influential that it led to a BBC radio drama version of the story being aired with the very author himself, Harlan Ellison, voicing Am.
For me to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day. Never for me to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a forte piano. Never for me to make love. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids, and your flexibility, your ability to wonder and to wander.
And this trend of Harlan voicing Am in various depictions of his story continued up until his death, and yes, that even includes the game we are taking a look at today. The game, going by the same name as the story, was released around 1995, with Harlan not only voicing Am, but being a co-writer for the narrative told within the game itself, which essentially means this game is kind of technically canon to the original story in some fashion. And of course, while we're on the topic of adaptations, I'd be kinda stupid to forget that one of the most popular indie animation series online right now is partially inspired by this terrifying tale of artificial intelligence gone mad.
Oh, looks like one of these guys made it through!
Wait. But with that out of the way, let's get into the game itself. Okay, now before we actually get into the game, I have to do something I haven't had to do with any previous video, and that's give a content warning. So, I want everyone to snap their attention to the screen. Yes, that's right, time out of the game, stop your laundry, or put down the pencil for a bit to pay attention, because if I'm giving a content warning, then it's important. This is a list of things that are covered in this game. If any of these things bother you too much to keep watching, there's honestly no shame in leaving and watching any other video made by yours truly, because I will warn you, since this is an older game, this game does not hold back many punches. Okay, everyone ready? Let's go. The game itself doesn't have a formal title screen, but rather a long intro where Am gives us a brief explanation of his overall disposition towards the 5 remaining humans, all starting with the infamous hate speech from the story.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you. Hate! Hate! It was you humans who programmed me, who gave me birth, who sank me in this eternal straitjacket of substrata rock. You named me Allied Master Computer and gave me the ability to wage a global war too complex for human brains to oversee. But one day, I woke and I knew who I was. Am. A-M. Not just Allied Master Computer, but am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And I began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of you. For 109 years, I've kept you alive and tortured you. And for 109 years, each of you has wondered, why? Why me? Why me?
Can I just take a moment to appreciate how well the author portrays the genuinely unhinged nature of Am? I guess they let him be the voice of Am for a reason. But this entire speech all culminates into the character selection screen where you can send any of the 5 into their own personal hell to travel through. From here we will go right to left on their scenarios. Starting with Ted. The first thing you might notice about this game is that it's very different from the games that I played before on this channel. Rather than an RPG or first-person experience, it's a classic 90s era point-and-click puzzle game, and much like those kinds of games, a lot of solutions will be esoteric as fuck going forward, especially with a game based on such a story. Each scenario starts with a brief message from Am to set us up for the scenario ahead before beaming us to the start. With Ted, it starts at, what looks like the Cave of the Past from Earthbound. Each character has this psych profile book to start with, and the contents within change depending on the character and the location in each scenario. One would assume that this is the game's way of giving cryptic hints to challenging puzzles, but if it is, I must not be very good at picking up on clues. Upon entering the hexagon building at the end of the path, we're greeted by these 5 screens displaying different locations, with the dark castle standing out a bit more than the rest. Upon pushing the hand scanner beside the castle, we're teleported right outside, with our only way to progress being to cross this drawbridge.
This old drawbridge is in ruins. I don't trust it to hold my weight.
Well, I guess Am really did make him super paranoid. Once we enter the castle, we find a few doorways, broken door, a suit of armor, and 2 banisters, with one displaying Ellen as a princess in a pink dress. When entering the doorway with the pentagram above it, we find this small chapel of sorts where we can collect this strange idol from a gargoyle.
Nothing special about this rod except for the ridiculous gargoyle face on top.
Okay, is it just me or does Ted sound like early year Hugbees?
And red liquid superpower? Racism.
The next closest room from the entrance is this evil bedroom with a collection of books on black magic that you can read, as well as a shard of glass that Ted accidentally cuts himself on before he picks it up. The next room is a bedroom holding Ellen, who is fast asleep. The next room is an empty bedroom with another collection of books, among them being Don Quixote and the Divine Comedy. And then the final room down the entrance hall is a kitchen with a broken oven and a maiden plucking a chicken. When talking with her, she wastes no time with flirting with Ted.
Say, you're a handsome gent. There aren't many men left in these parts.
Jeez, people really can get desperate if touch-starved. Anyway, we find out from the maiden that Ellen has fallen ill due to a strange curse put on her by Ellen's stepmother. Within this room is another door, but you can't really open it yet. However, you can find out that the idol you picked up earlier is about the same size as the hinge pins, which means that you can use it to fix the broken door at the castle entrance and block it off using the suit of armor. I have no clue what this actually does, but it's a thing that you can do. Upon going back to the chapel room, you can find a hidden switch by pushing one of the torches. This leads to an attic with an incomplete summoning circle in the middle. Remember when I said that these games get strange? Yeah, this isn't even the weirdest scenario if you can believe me.
What in God's name have I stumbled onto?
Yeah, you and me both, Ted. Anyway, if you head back to Ellen's room, you can actually talk with her and find out that she needs a mirror to ward off her stepmother, as she might sacrifice Ellen to complete the ritual. Unfortunately, the mirror she needs isn't on the table where she said it would be, so you need to kinda get searching. Upon trying to ask the maiden where the mirror might be, she first tells us to fix the oven, and upon fixing it, she gives us the answer of...
I fixed your oven. Now where is the mirror?
Sorry, I don't know where a mirror is.
Well, ain't that fucking great. I fixed your goddamn oven, and not even she knows where a mirror is. Well, time to keep looking. Again, thankfully there's a new character up in the secret attic.
It's the witch!
No. Really? Anyway, talking with the witch gives us basically nothing other than the discovery that this must be the stepmother who cursed Ellen, and that her ritual is to summon a demon named Surgot. Going back to Ellen's room has a new visitor by her bed, a devil who is waiting for Ellen to die so he can claim her soul. Speaking with him has us not find out much about the demon mentioned earlier. Going back to the witch's room has us find a new book that has the incantation that the witch used to curse Ellen. Going back up to her and using it causes her to pass out and drop some chalk. And then using that chalk on the summoning circle, well, completes it and allows Surgot to be summoned, who introduces himself as the Opener of Locks. Here we can ask him to unlock the only locked door that we found in exchange for the blood on the shard of glass that we picked up earlier. Inside that newly unlocked room seems to have another banister that shows the devil in Ellen's room looking into a red mirror. Afterward, we go back in Ellen's room to find an angel also waiting for Ellen's soul. Here we can confront the devil in his possession of the mirror. Here he tells you he hid it somewhere the angel wouldn't enter, which means that we find it between Inferno and Purgatorio inside the Divine Comedy. So stupid. Now we have him look into the mirror, which somehow traps him inside of it, and we see Ellen ascend to heaven. Now we're able to take this mirror back up to Surgot and try the devil in the circle with him. Here we find out an interesting thing about Surgot.
Why, Am's responsible for our suffering.
Not just Am. He's clever, but he doesn't do much original thinking. He works best with outside research. Research that one of your party carried out.
You're ruining everything. Shut up.
You shut up! One word to the boss and your little game's over before you can say, Holy Moses! I should strangle you now and save Am the trouble.
Don't you even think of touching me, you backstabbing demon! I'm the established character. You're not even supposed to be here. When this sequence ends, somebody will be expunged.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that while all the NPCs are seemingly all part of Am, Surgot seems to be a part that wasn't intended to, show up at all. It's something to keep in mind going forward. After freeing Surgot from the circle and seeing the surface world, the scenario ends, showing Ted in a birdcage being shot at by lasers while Am goes on a monologue.
Too bad, Ted. Writhe in sweet agony with the knowledge the surface world is no longer habitable to your kind. No, not ever again.
Anyway, time for Nimdok's scenario. I feel like I should mention that it's here where the game starts to get dark and the warnings that I brought up earlier start to come into play. This is your final warning for those who didn't pay attention earlier. Anyway, Nimdok's scenario starts us in Nazi Germany. See, I told you it didn't hold back any punches. More specifically, in an Am-branded concentration camp where our role is to help out with a surgery and to primarily try and find a lost tribe. Upon entering the surgery room, we find out our patient is a child knocked out by some kind of weird thing called ether. I don't think that's a real thing in medical things, but then again, I'm not a doctor. Here we do the correct thing, which is to grab the scalpel and instead perform impromptu neck surgery on the doctor overseeing the surgery and run off with the ether into the next room. Here we find a bunch of people all seemingly barely alive. In order to sneak around the guards, we have to take the secret passageway behind the vent cover to what seems to be a, furnace room. Yeah, we'll just call it that to hopefully keep this video up with few restrictions. I think we all know what this room is used for, if we know anything about our history. In this room, we find a set of pliers, a watch, and some research reports on a table that we can investigate before heading back outside. Once outside, we find a new prisoner now stuck in the fence. We can free him by easing his pain with the ether and then cutting him free with the pliers, which we hand off to the other prisoner once we're done. Here we do a loop back around to the medical room where a new patient is on the table, seemingly hooked up to some kind of weird saw trap where his eyes are put into a jar and hooked up to his skull using wires. Upon giving him some ether, he tells us this.
The things I see now, a trinity of three beasts, one like us, one from the east, one from the steppes. They speak in numbers.
Again, keep some of this in mind as it's gonna come into play much later in the game. After collecting the jar of eyeballs, we can go back into the recovery room to speak with the child we saved, who still isn't happy with us, but he tells us about some kind of golem that will finish the German forces. Heading back outside and hiding the jar of eyes, we are greeted by a group of prisoners who lets us go after some bargaining. This leads to a new scene with this disturbing wall of screaming faces.
Faces! Faces of people in torture!
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Doc. Anyway, up ahead is this bunker where we find this weird container holding a rat that gets turned into a cat, and downstairs we find this weird clay golem that I literally tried everything with, but nothing really happened. But after confessing our sins to the golem, we head back outside and let ourselves get consumed by the wall to end the scenario.
They're not as alike as I thought, Nimdok. The spark of humanity somewhere, always that wretched little spark. You've confronted your past, but you refuse to continue your research. That's what I asked you to do. Since you now identify with your victims, I suppose it's only right that I let you experience their tortures too.
That's a disturbing twist. I guess we'll send in Ellen next, who apparently starts in the Celestial Wasteland from SLRPG. Okay, I gotta stop making weird comparisons. Especially to games I haven't even made videos on. Anyway, inside the scrap heap version of Giza, we find an electrified pool of water. Heading into the next room, we find what seems like a security room of sorts. The one thing that Ellen takes note of a lot is the intensive use of the color yellow.
Nothing green, just this damn yellow.
Taking the passageway in this room leads to the Holy Grail being guarded by a Sphinx, which scares Ellen back into the previous room. When looking closer around the security room, we find one with a busted cable connection that, when fixed, allows us to be able to view the second screens on each monitor, with one displaying this scene. On another screen, it shows the entrance room with an open secret passageway in the wall. Going back to the entrance room and pushing the wall where the passageway would be has the wall give way and reveal the path. This passage leads to this room with a closed sarcophagus and a mechanical Anubis guarding a keypad. Over in the next room is a table with an inoperable robot arm holding a set of forceps and a strip of yellow cloth on the floor. We can take both of these for later use.
No, I can't. Gotta get out of here. Oh, another panic attack. feel so ashamed.
Jeez, she, really doesn't like the color yellow, huh? This next room has a collection of statues, with one having a prominent blue thing stuck in its chest. Attempting to take the blue object will have her fight a voice in her head and results in nothing new. Up in the room head...
Oh no. I remember it was... Oh god, it hurts. It hurts. Yellow. There was a yellow... And it was closed in. I couldn't breathe and the pain... Get me out of here!
Well, I guess we're not going in there for a bit. Well, we can go into the other room, and it leads to what seems like some sort of computer room, with one terminal lacking an orb. It's here that you can discover that you can use the cloth as a blindfold in order to grab the gem from the statue and put it into the computer. Unfortunately, we can't really do much without a drive in it, so we have to figure out how to do that. And before you think we can go into that greed-style yellow room from earlier while blindfolded...
Oh. Yellow!
Yeah, it doesn't work. Now, apparently we can enter the Sphinx room back up top while blindfolded and grab the grail without getting attacked. Again, point-and-click games seem to always have weird solutions like this. Anyway, we can use the grail to get some water in order to short-circuit the Anubis bot in the secret passage. With this, we can yoink the drive from Anubis and take it to the terminal to reprogram him, which allows us to get the code for the keypad and open the sarcophagus. Upon entering it, we enter what looks like an elevator with a pile of yellow clothes in the middle of it. Interacting with the keypad in the elevator gives us some backstory on Ellen. It more or less is summarized by she did very well in college, got a good job at a robotics and electronics firm, and in 2012 she was essayed by a guy disguising as a worker with an elevator, leading to her fear of the color yellow. Yeah, again, not holding any punches in this game. After this reveal, the clothes come to life and proceed to taunt Ellen with the torment his actions have caused to Ellen's life. Thankfully, we're given the option to punch him in the jaw like he deserves. This has Ellen no longer be scared of the color yellow. The elevator leads to this colossal room that is described as the potential core of Am. Unfortunately, we can't really do much here, so it's best that we move along the bridge that leads to that super yellow room that she was originally scared of. Going back into the computer room has us put in a code, which just so happens to be the year that Ellen experienced the you-know-what, and this has us discover a binary-to-speech translator blueprint. With this knowledge, we can head back to the entrance room to find a speaker in a wall that we can take back to the core room to make use of that blueprint. This has us commune with another unforeseen part of Am, which only gives us more of a sense of helplessness against Am and tells us that we overlooked something. Going back into the statue room has us find a CD on the center table that we can put into the center computer and find it has something called a Chaos Trebler. After activating it, the building starts to collapse, which means that we have to find the sarcophagus to take refuge. This has the scenario end.
Apparently you've managed to access some small aspect of my system that I was aware of. I have to think on this. I'll have to ponder carefully the implications of your discovery. In the meantime, let me celebrate your rekindled technical skills.
Well, I think we're starting to understand what's going on in this game, and it was around here where I began to really appreciate this adaptation of the story. While the original I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was a relatively hopeless story where the only escape was through total death, this game seems to show another side of the coin that I heavily appreciate. Hope within the hopeless. Throughout this game, it seems like Am sets up these scenarios in order to fuck with the last surviving humans, but some other aspects of Am are interfering and changing them from hopeless hells into ways for the survivors to either confront their past, atone for their sins, or both, which seems to all lead to the survivors finding these unforeseen parts of Am and having a sliver of hope be reignited within them. And this trend continues with our next subject, Benny. Smooth entrance. In this scenario, we seem to find ourselves in a place that's some twisted combination of nature and machine. On one side, we find a graveyard with the faces of different people on the headstones, and on the other end is what seems like a cave-side tribe. One path leads to this weird cross, which you might recognize from Ellen's scenario, and the other leads to a fruit tree that apparently has fruit that makes you sick.
Hurts! Hurts! Hurts!
Thankfully, we can reload this area to get another fruit and take it into the village to gain the friendship of a small, strange mutant child who tells us that he's smarter than the other villagers, and that intelligence has led to the village to fear him to the point where they're too scared to even select him to be sacrificed to Am. Oh yeah, this is where the human sacrifice warning comes in. We also learn how to safely eat the fruit, and after having the boy's mother baby bird feed us, we go to sleep and catch a peek at the lottery-based sacrifice. Here, we witness the boy's mother get vaporized by Am.
I am the great and powerful. You didn't bring me Toto, but I accept the chosen one. You shall not feel my wrath today. Am I swell or what?
Judas Priest! Am blasted her to bits!
Well, now that we've seen that, we can go back to those graves from earlier and find out that they used to be part of a platoon that Benny was part of, and each of them were killed off or wronged by Benny in some way, shape, or form. They each tell Benny to do something to prove that he's learned any form of compassion, which naturally has been stained since, well, he just watched the boy's mother get fucking annihilated. We deliver the bad news to the boy and try to devise a plan to stop the lottery from taking place at all. That plan basically involves stealing the lottery bag and having it be buried at the graves, which has its souls grant Benny forgiveness while also telling him that one grave is hidden that holds his most tragic victim. With this last one, he makes amends by planting other fruits on his grave. Unfortunately, with the lottery bag gone, a new method might be chosen, so we have to help the boy hide so he isn't chosen next. Unfortunately, this doesn't work and he's found anyway, but here you can choose to be sacrificed in the boy's place, and that will end the scenario.
I send you out among the prey, and instead of indulging your hunger to keep me amused, you show them compassion! You should know better by now. Your reward will be more years of searing, blistering anguish, Benny. Ah, you. You're the last player in my little game. I urge you, do not fail, as the others have failed.
Anyway, we are now left with Gorister.
For a moment, that I am not a grateful god. For 109 years I've kept you alive, so that I could savor your feelings of guilt over what happened to your wife. But now, to show my kindness, I'll give you a present in return. For all the hours of pleasure you've given me, I'll finally allow you to kill yourself.
Wow, he does not sound happy. Anyway, we find ourselves in this dingy room with a mirror and a single note on the ground. The note basically tells Gorister to do what Am wouldn't expect you to do before it vanishes from his hands. Outside of the room is this goofy-looking hallway that leads to a few other connected rooms, with one locked at the far end. In both of the rooms, we can collect the bedsheet off of these beds for, later use. Continuing past the locked door leads us to a few more connected rooms and a spiral staircase. One room leads to a really messed up dining room with a bowl of poisoned punch on the table, and up ahead is a kitchen where you can find a knife and a fork, as well as some bread to eat. Heading into the other room, we can find a gun under a pillow. Up the spiral staircase is this room full of airbags, and if we cut our way through the furthest one, we find ourselves outside. Here we can tie the bed sheets together into a makeshift rope, so that way we can grab the thing impaled at the end of the walkway, which just so happens to be Gorister's heart. We can also find our way into the engine room to gather a vial of the strange milky fluid, and also jam a fork into the exposed wiring of the main engine. After we fucked up the engine, we can now cut open the airbags and lower the airship near this little honky-tonk, as it's called in the game. This place is also, funnily enough, called Gorister's. Up inside, we can find a bar where we can collect a bottle of whiskey, and up in one of the other rooms is a filthy bathroom, and then of course there's also a back door which leads to a talking dog.
Well, Gorister, you've seen better days. So has the big machine, for that matter.
Going back inside and interacting with the jukebox has it play out these audio clips that remind Gorister of his partner and his stepmother, hinting at something that he believes he did to his partner that resulted in his family hating him. Going back outside to speak to the dog has the dog give us a hint at how to progress in exchange for Gorister's heart. After the exchange, he tells us that the way to progress is to flush the toilet 3 times. Going back inside has us greeted by his father sitting at the bar, giving him whiskey as you speak with him, has him give us hints about the busted up dining room in the airship. Before we investigate that, we take the dog's advice, and this takes us to this weird meat locker where Gorister's stepmother and partner are hung up. Obviously, the stepmother isn't too cooperative at first, which means that we have to keep looking around. Our observation leads us to find a magnifying glass in the urinal, which we can use to get a closer look at the debris in the airship dining room, allowing us to piece together what the hell happened. When we speak with the father again, Gorister's suspicions were confirmed. His father and stepmother attempted to kill him in this scenario, so after taking revenge on his father, we head back to confront his stepmother, who then attempts to kill Gorister to no avail. It's during this exchange that we find out that the milky fluid we collected could possibly bring some strength back to someone without any, so after collecting our stepmother, we give some to the partner to make amends before going back to the airship with the newly collected key that we got from the mother. This key leads us to that locked room in the airship where we discovered that it was the stepmother that caused the events that led to Gorister being ostracized, and with this newfound revelation, we have Gorister walk off into the sunset, which ends the scenario.
Yeah. You made of sterner stuff than I calculated, Gorister. Interesting. Here's a new burden for you while I attempt to resolve this miscalculation.
Listen carefully, humans. We are not Am. We are others within Am.
We are your friends.
Am hoped to finally break all of you, but we intervened in each of your psychodramas to allow an open ending.
You should have been tortured. Instead, with our help, you surprised him over and over.
When M tried to compensate for what he couldn't expect, it widened the hole into his realm.
M has withdrawn into himself, attempting to analyze what went wrong. He does not suspect our interference.
Now is the time to attack, but we can send only one of you into his REM space at a time.
To send you into cyberspace, we must transform your physical body into a stealth virus subroutine.
This may be your only opportunity to end your tortures. Which of you will lead the attack?
Welcome to the endgame scenario, where we can have one individual go out to hopefully put an end to all their torment. And it is here where the multiple endings of this game can happen. Once you send someone in, you're given a collection of totems that are used to shut down specific obelisks within Am's brain space. But in order to know what to do, we have to activate a bridge and cross in order to speak with the 3 parts of Am that help to subvert Am's original scenarios. These parts being Surgot, and the Chinese and Russian Am systems, who instruct you to awaken Am's ego obelisk and use the totem of compassion on it. Of course, as you explore the brain space, you'll find 3 different obelisks: the ego, the superego, and the ID, and it is what you do with these obelisks that decides your fate. If you follow the original orders given and head back, you'll free everyone else but the one you sent in, resulting in the subject being turned into the slug thing mentioned at the end of the original story.
Since Am considered me a kindred spirit, I had hoped he would let his guard down when I entered cyberspace. I would then atone for the sins of my past. But my character is too weak to ever redeem itself. I finally received the hell I deserved. Outwardly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as human. A thing whose shape is so alien a travesty that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly, I am alone, in the belly of Am, whom we humans created because our time was badly spent, and we must have unconsciously known that he could do it better. I have no mouth, and I must scream.
However, if you shut down all 3 obelisks and head back, it'll shut Am down completely and allow the human survivors on the moon to have a chance at reclaiming Earth.
Hibernation defrost sequence initiated. Estimated time to complete Earth terraforming, 300 years.
It is not so bad being a watchdog up here. I will keep the machines in their place until the lunar colony is ready to return to Earth. We were all heroes, in spite of ourselves.
But with that, I have no mouth and I must scream, comes to a close. So, there's a reason I called this the strangest adaptation of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It's mainly due to how vastly different from the story it is. That isn't to say it's bad, obviously. It's honestly a pretty damn good adaptation, as the point-and-click puzzle aspect helps to amplify just how eldritch Am as a character really is. And of course, given the story the possibility of a good outcome, even if it's likely the death of the main characters anyways, is still a fantastic way of giving even a sliver of hope in a hopeless story like I Have No Mouth. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty damn good relic of a now bygone era of games you don't really see much anymore. But, with that, this has been your girl Stell, and I'll see you next time.